doubts are traitors and make us lose the good that we oft might win by, what is this?
Fearing.
By fearing, it looked like a K for a minute. By fearing to attempt. William Shakespeare. Mandela was really impressed with Shakespeare. And my daughter here, I think, had a wonderful comment. And I must say, I've learnt a lot from my kids here. This man went into jail on Robben Island as, some would say, a terrorist. But he came out a completely reborn man. Completely changed. And that realization, I think, in my mind, correct me if you think differently, puts him really in the category of a great man. Because he was able to overcome himself. Remember that slide of the cat, and what I tend to see as very humorous, perhaps saying, you know, reciting the 23rd Psalm for his, oh my Lord, please. But look what he did. Now, before we get on to harmony, this to me is very personal and meaningful. Very personal and meaningful, because for the rest of my family, my wife, my kids, before we all came over to Montreal, actually, I came first. And in the hospital where I worked, in Pretoria, the technician there was very nasty. Very nasty to some of the black cleaners in the hospital, etc., etc. And I used to think to myself, wow, I wonder if one day they're going to get you. So, but I came first, so my family was still there. So you can imagine, this is quite troubling. You know, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I used to, in my mind's eye, pray that I would visualize. I didn't know anything about this. I would just visualize the white president of South Africa, who here is de Klerk, shaking the hands of a black man. And I'd ask God to bless it, please. Because it was that important to me. I thought, I wasn't sure that my family was safe. So this one is very important, very meaningful to me. I put this in, and then we'll leave Mandela. Because, see if you agree with me, I think this is such a wonderful definition of resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Now, do you agree with me? I think this is a great definition of resentment, and it's so easy to fall into this trap, isn't it? On the human level. And here he's just saying, as I walked, we did that one. He knew he had to let go of his anger and bitterness. And my goodness, he did. One of the great moments in South Africa, and I'm only putting this in because he was so impressed with Shakespeare. He often spoke about that in his speeches. And one of the great things that he did was on the sports field. You know, I've watched the Wildcats here a couple of times. I like basketball. But in Pretoria, it's not basketball, it's rugby. And of course, I grew up in England playing rugby. What he did, after he came out, I can't remember the year now, probably 94 or something like that, he went on to the field, and the whole Springbok rugby team was a symbol really of white power in olden times, before the end of apartheid. But I mean, after the end of apartheid. It was a symbol of white power. He went on to that field wearing a Springbok shirt. I can't remember the number on the back, but and he met the captain of the team, and they spoke, and it was absolutely clear from that the way things were going to go. And he demonstrated it. I like this. If there are dreams about a beautiful South Africa, there are also roads that lead to their goal. Two of these roads could be named goodness and forgiveness. I include that because it seems to me he radiated this. He radiated goodness and I think forgiveness. Now, as my daughter pointed out here, if he hadn't gone to jail, none of this would have happened. Interesting? Yes, absolutely. Now we're going to change. The lives of past greats, but we're going to get on to future greats. This guy, Giorgio Vasari, in talking about Leonardo da Vinci, heaven sometimes sends us beings who represent not humanity alone, but divinity itself, so that taking them as our models and imitating them, our minds and the best of our intelligence may approach the highest of the celestial spheres. And I wrote here, well, you know what? This could just as well have been said about Newton and Beethoven. Newton could be full of himself and quite argumentative and superior. Beethoven was always, I mentioned this a little bit in my first book, but he was always considered to be antisocial. And yet nobody really knew what it was like to be deaf, and even going more deaf. But surely these great people, it's not their actions that we should imitate, it's their values and what they're seeking and why. Beethoven and Newton are surely examples of this. I put, surely, genius is an inner and outer state or condition that is not subservient in any way to the norms of the day. They know what they want to do, and that's that. Boom, finished. Don't care what you think. Newton's classic. So was Beethoven. I mean, he studied under Joseph Haydn. You can't teach me anything, I'm off. They know what they want, that's it, they do it, goodbye. Now, in this book of genius by, I don't know if I pronounced this correctly, Busan and Keen, they categorized or listed the greatest geniuses of the past according to, were they really original? How versatile were these guys? Did they dominate their field? Well, did they have a universality of vision for the world? They're strong, they have stacks of energy. Guess what? Shakespeare was ranked as number 2 after Leonardo da Vinci. Thomas Jefferson was number 6. Now, Jefferson is very interesting here because we'll come back to him. I don't know whether to mention this now, but Thomas Jefferson considered 3 people to be the greatest ever. One was Newton,